Senator Brown, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. So I understand you are going to break up the big banks, which sounds fun. Here's my real question. How in the world did you get Senator David Vitter on board?
Well, Vitter is, people all across the political spectrum have really understand that the size of these banks gives them an advantage in the marketplace. It gives them lower interest rates when they borrow money. They're able to do things that are anti-competitive because of their size. I mean, these are banks that go from about $600 billion in assets to $2.4 trillion. And I think, Vitter can speak for himself, but I think he sees the damage it does to our economy, let alone if something happens and these banks fail, any one of these banks fail, what it does to the whole economy.
I think a great majority of the American people agree with you, but I'm not sure a great majority of the Republican Party agrees with you. So that's why the Vitter collaboration is really interesting and encouraging. So what percentage of the Republican Party do you think that he might be able to get on board for this movement?
Well, we're hopeful he can bring a number. We're talking to about 10 Senate Republicans who are interested in a variety of different ways of doing this. But when I had this amendment 3 years ago to the so-called Dodd-Frank bill, we only got 3 Republican votes. We got 30-some Democrats. We got to do better among Democrats too. And there's, this place still sings with an upper class accent. I mean, this speaks with an upper class accent. This place is still Republicans worse, but Democrats too are too close to Wall Street in some cases. And this is going to be an uphill fight because of the power of these banks. It's not just their economic power, but they've obviously got political power at stopping regulations that they say would harm them. I'd say help the public. And making any kind of legislative move. We were able to get them on Dodd-Frank to do some things that didn't want to do, but not nearly enough.
Where do you think the Obama administration stands on this?
Well, not clear. I mean, they were not supportive of our efforts to break up the banks last time, to limit the amount of debt that a bank could hold is the more precise definition. But we're going to keep talking to them. I've talked to the new Secretary of Treasury. We're talking to the Federal Reserve about it. It was considered a radical move 3 years ago. It's not now. It's becoming more and more mainstream. As some conservative and liberal economists both are saying that this isn't good for the country to allow this kind of concentration among the banks.
So has Jack Lew been more responsive than Tim Geithner was?
He's marginally more responsive than Geithner, but we're still working on it.
Okay.
And it's not encouraging yet with them. I mean, this is pushing a heavy boulder up a hill. But to give an example, 18 years ago, the largest 6 banks, total assets were 18% of GDP. Today, they're 63% of GDP. So the size of these banks is such that they have a control and a role in far too much of the economy for them to be healthy. And I think some conservative senators are beginning to come on board because they see this as a real threat to what they think capitalism should be. And capitalism should be where the markets get to work and without, in a way that a few people don't have control. And
too big to fail as a government subsidy.
And too big to fail as a government subsidy. I mean, right now, the largest banks, when they borrow money, when they go on the capital markets, and they borrow money, they get it they can get it for as much as 1% less than a small bank or a medium-sized regional bank like in Ohio Huntington or Fifth Third or Key or something. And that 1% is a lot of money saved. And they think Bloomberg did a study that the savings or the profits or the subsidies, call it what you want, for those 6 big banks comes out to $80 billion a year. Look at what sequestration was, almost that exact amount. I mean, that's a lot of money split among 6 banks because they are too big to fail, and that's basically what the market's saying.
So let's talk about progressive priorities a little bit. You have a couple more progressive senators with you now, Senator Warren, obviously, from Massachusetts, et cetera. Is there enough of a group there that we can pass any progressive priorities in the Senate now?
Well, I think there are. I think there's Senator Hirono from Hawaii that's a good progressive, Senator Baldwin from Wisconsin. There are a number of people that on a variety of different kinds of issues, labor issues, they're
like
good.
What would be a progressive priority we couldn't get done before that you think we might have a shot?
I think we have a real shot at immigration reform now, partly because nothing can happen if Republicans want to just block it, unless the president can reach over their heads and convince the public to do something. A lot of Republicans understand they've been on the wrong side of of immigration, and they think that passing immigration is going to mean the Hispanic vote is going to come to them. I think they don't know what they're talking about, but at least they know they can't keep blocking things like the DREAM Act and using their sort of veiled, I won't call it quite racist, but their veiled language that really does. I mean, that's the message Latinos get from their party is they're against Obamacare, and the Latino community was stronger for Obamacare than almost any other subgroup of the electorate. So it's way more than immigration. But I think Republicans know if they don't do immigration, they've really kissed off that vote for a long, long time because their ideas.
So, but if you take that example, that's interesting because then you get the legislative victories not necessarily by cooperating with Republicans, but by beating them so badly in the elections that they've got to turn around and cooperate with you.
Well, and that's, I think, why we got an increase in taxes for people making over $400,000 a year. I thought the deal wasn't good enough. Maybe it was the best we could get. I voted for it because of that when Vice President Biden came and talked to us about it. But that's what the election, that clearly wouldn't have happened to increase taxes on wealthiest Americans without the election victory. Mm-hmm. And, Republicans are now saying the president's got to compromise, move, but the president won, and I know you have to compromise in this business, but some of these progressive priorities are, we've got to keep pushing, keep working on them, especially a fairer tax system and a strong Medicare and a strong social safety net.
So speaking of which, it leads us perfectly to Alan Grayson's letter in the House. Now that's on the House side, and he says he wants progressives to sign on saying no cuts for Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid under any deal. Now, do you agree with that, or do you think that is putting too harsh a red line?
Well, I want to trust the president mostly on this, but I also draw some lines too. For instance, I was in Youngstown at a town hall maybe 2 years ago, and a woman stood up and she said, it was in a generally low-income area, she said, I'm 63 years old, I just want to stay alive for another year and a half so I can get health insurance. I mean, that's what her focus in her life was. I just got to stay alive so I can get insurance. We have no business raising the retirement age for Medicare or Social Security. I would.
Is that a red line for you?
Yeah, that's a red line for me. I mean, people that dress like this and work in Washington or dress like this and work wherever. They can work till they're maybe 70 sometimes, but a lot of us could. But somebody that works in a factory, works construction, works in a retail operation, cleaning hotels, waiting tables, they can't work till they're 70. In most cases, their bodies don't. And we have no business raising the retirement age and afflicting them with that.
How about a changed CPI for Social Security?
I oppose a changed CPI. I don't know. I think there may be. I don't know what the president's got to give to this crowd to get them to do what we need for a more progressive tax system. That's why I don't want to close the door on anything. I don't like changed CPI. And I absolutely don't like raising the retirement age. We could raise the cap on Social Security. That would be a good thing. We know that.
The payroll cap.
Yeah, and that would the payroll cap. So upper income people would pay more. Social Security is not in the same trouble, in the troubled condition that conservatives like to say. I mean, you start off with they don't like Medicare and Social Security. I mean, from their inception, conservatives don't think that government should play a role in retirement and health care the way Social Security and Medicare do. So they will try kind of coming from every angle, every chance they get to privatize them.
Isn't there some irony, though, in both the president and Mitt Romney, Republicans and Democrats, before the election saying, oh, the other side is trying to cut Medicare, the other side is trying to cut Medicare, and then they turn around right after the election and they both talk about cutting Medicare?
Well, that's why we make sure the president does the right thing on this.
Well, good luck on that. So I'm a little bit more skeptical than you are on that. But so speaking of which, let's talk about the administration for a second. So now, obviously, the administration has not been as good on civil liberties as progressives want. We have the warrantless wiretapping. We have the continued possible indefinite detentions and literal ones in Guantanamo. And then we have the drone program that executes U.S. citizens abroad without a trial and without seemingly due process. So do you object to those programs? And if so, how is it possible to influence the president in the right direction on those issues?
Good question. I think that, I guess I've seen I disagree with the president about Afghanistan. I think we should have moved a little bit faster. I think this drone issue, we've got to make sure it's got the kinds of safeguards. If the president has a lot of power a lot of authority to move on some of this stuff, and he's generally done war and peace issues, I think, pretty well, civil liberties pretty well. But there's not been as much light between what Bush did and what Obama's done. And I'm not on any of the committees that work on those, but I think we've got to make sure that we keep shining a light on that. I think the progressive community's done that pretty well.
Let me ask one more follow-up on that. Do you agree or disagree with the idea of being able to do the drone strikes on U.S. citizens on foreign soil without a trial?
I generally don't agree with that.
You don't agree with that? Okay. All right, now let's end on a fun note. Who's your best friend on Capitol Hill here?
Probably Senator Casey and Senator Whitehouse I'm closest to. Both good progressives on almost all issues. And Casey and I just got on the Finance Committee. We're going to be working on some trade issues together, and it will be good because we can move this country, I hope, in a little better direction on international trade issues.
So what do senators who are friends do on a Saturday night? Do you guys hang out to go to a movie?
No, the thing is, that's part of the problem here. Probably we go home. I mean, he's in Pennsylvania and I'm in Ohio on Saturday night with my wife, and he's with his family. So, I mean, there is not that much socialization here, typically. I mean, Senator Whitehouse and I were in Haiti and Cuba together, meeting with, talking with Castro about Alan Gross, releasing Alan Gross, going to a school in Haiti to see how McGovern Dole is feeding very, very poor kids, and using McGovern Dole in part to get families to send girls to school because they get it's the only good meal probably they get for the day. So we work on some things like that.
Do Republicans and Democrats ever go bowling together? Does that happen anymore?
I don't go bowling with anybody. But is that like a great thing to do? There's some travel together. There's some discussions together. I mean, there's some occasional meals together. It's not enough. I mean, we part of it is we see the world very differently. I mean, that's why with Vitter, whom I don't agree with on anything, Senator Vitter, we found something. I watched him in committee one day. He was asking some tough questions on banking, and I went over to him and said, we might be able to work together, and we figured out a way to do it on something that's really a major economic issue. So it really is looking for opportunities and then getting to know them better on that issue.